I worked
Right.
until
need to
like
point it out.
the day that I got induced, and then I was back for 5 days later.
People look at her
Right
when
now,
she's looking to be.
Yeah,
Give me-
yeah.
give me some times
Yeah.
when they're available, just run out and show what stuff is. So.
Okay.
She can't make good part-time money.
I'm not sure I'm the best person to show people.
Okay. I'm going to take notes on how to do this. A motion to
Just gotta
call the meeting.
call the
Oh,
meeting to order.
okay, we're officially calling them.
Roll call.
All right,
Yeah, here.
here.
Present.
Michael. Erica.
Yes.
Annie.
Present.
Karen. Rob.
Here.
Tim.
Then ask for a motion to approve the agenda.
Okay, motion to approve last meeting's agenda, right?
Of this agenda.
Oh, this agenda. Okay, everybody get a chance to look at that.
Motion.
I'll second it.
And all in favor?
Aye.
Alright,
Any opposed? Do I have to ask that too?
you're perfect.
Okay, okay. All right, so motion to approve the minutes from May 17th. Right, Charlie?
Yep.
Okay,
My motion.
I'll
second. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? All right. Okay, public comment.
Pretty sure Andy doesn't.
Okay. Okay, I didn't know. Andy? None. All right, new business, presentation, discussion on Main Street, Iowa. This must be Michael Wagler.
And I'll introduce Michael really quick. He's with the Main Street Iowa program, part of the downtown Alliance or IEDA. I guess I don't know all the names on that, but I'm gonna hand it off to him, and we just invited him down to kind of do a presentation on what Main Street.
The Main Street program is a critical tool within the toolbox of the Economic Development Authority that focuses a grassroots economic development style on downtown revitalization. We'll talk a lot about the Main Street approach, about half of our time ish. I want to just kind of give more of a classroom setting to set the context, and then I just want to open it up for conversation. One of the pieces that I'm really going to be interested from your perspective is I know I believe it was in the before times that you had that Indianola participated in a downtown assessment. And I know that in between your streetscape project, the courthouse project, and the pandemic, there have been a lot of variables that probably impacted your really deliberate focus on implementation of the downtown assessment recommendations, but I do just want to get your opinions or even awareness of what that is when we get to the discussion point. Does that sound like a good use of our time today? It's wonderful. Well, I will start off with a little bit more of an introduction. This is me. I like to introduce myself by the numbers. 26 is how many years that I've been actively involved within the Main Street program here in the state of Iowa. I got my start in Bloomfield, Iowa, a town in southeast Iowa, as a volunteer on the Main Street Design Committee when it was a new program in Bloomfield. I was the token young person on the board of directors of the Main Street program. They got me hooked with a couple of really great projects documenting upper floor housing or upper floor opportunities in downtown Bloomfield. That really just got me connected in. I sat as the interim director. I started with Main Street Iowa as a full-time staff person in 2002, and I've been the director now for 10 years. So I'm one of those really nerdy people that knew what I wanted to be when I was very young, and I in fact became what I wanted to be here. So as I get talking, I will talk a little bit faster because I'm, like I said, a self-proclaimed Main Street nerd. And I get very excited about the opportunities, both with the communities that are currently participating in the Main Street program and communities like Indianola that have a lot of great opportunity no matter what the decision is down the line. One represents the amount of historic theaters that I am part owner of. I'm part owner of a historic theater in Des Moines that we just broke ground in March on a $4.8 million renovation of. So there again, my nerdiness extends into my personal life. When I'm not working at Main Street professionally, I'm doing rehabilitation personally as well. 102 represents the age of my brick bungalow just outside of downtown Des Moines. There again, comes right back to my entire family that I forced them to learn how to repoint and do all kinds of fun things as it relates to making sure that our house is around for the next 100 years. And then 25,000 represents the average amount of miles that I and my entire team at the Main Street Iowa program traveled throughout the state of Iowa on an annual basis. Obviously, the pandemic impacted that over the last couple of years, but we're excited to be back out on the road. And I put that up as a representation that Main Street Iowa is not a program of quote unquote bureaucrats that sit behind their desk and tell communities what to do. Main Street and the Downtown Resource Center are a team of people who are out on the road. We'll talk a little bit more about who makes up my team. But everyone has worked in community as a Main Street executive director or as community development folks that really have walked the walk and been in the trenches from that perspective. So that's who I am. I don't want you all to give me that big of an introduction, but I do just want a little bit of an introduction from you all. Maybe your name, what you do in real life, and your favorite place in downtown Indianola. And I'll give you about 9.5 seconds to do that. And since Charlie and I have talked first, I'm going to have Charlie go first to give you all a little bit more time to talk. So,
Well, I'm Charlie South, City of Indianola. I've been here now for just over 4 years, and I refuse to tell you what my favorite place is because a lot of business owners.
Excellent. Why don't we start over here?
Tim Bryan. I run a wedding DJ photo booth business. My family has 6 electric scooters and we terrorize the entire town.
Excellent. Wonderful. I love it.
Erica Roberts. I've actually been a hairdresser for 25 years and owned a retail business the last few years. I like a lot of places.
Mhm.
I went out to Lake Poppy.
Okay, great. I was gonna say, I see how this is going. Everyone's gonna be like, we're just a great place here. You have to be
that's
specific.
where, like, I
Thank you.
mean,
Yeah, Lake
yeah.
Aquabi. We got specific.
Yeah, that's where I like to go.
And Tim, I let you go with the terrorizing the entire community, but look up here. Sorry, in the back.
My name is Doug Gomer, owner of Westfield Brewing Company on the square. Favorite place in town is probably going to be anything outdoors. I actually despise being indoors.
Like in basement windowless rooms.
Just even, yeah, anywhere outdoors, the park, the green space on the square
Mhm.
that we have coming is going to be awesome. So.
Great, excellent. I'll come up here front.
Jamie Pollard Parrott. My favorite place in Indianola, specifically the Indianola Square, is my apartment condo. Pretty sure we've been in contact before.
Wonderful.
So yeah,
Excellent.
was those the 2 questions? My name and please.
What you do in real life?
Oh, I'm a lot of things. I'm a daycare provider for Indianola Child Care. with preschool age. I'm a photographer and I'm aspiring to be like 10,000 things when I grow up. So
Wow. All right.
a lot of
Let's follow that.
I'm Amanda River and I own Sports Page Grill, River House Tavern. We have a couple other locations. We have Winterset location and Ankeny location. I can't pinpoint one. Cammy probably gets my heart and my credit card the most at Lulabelle Designs.
Okay, yeah.
I'll vouch for that. Yeah. That's roughly.
Oh, gosh.
Yep, you have to go too. You're in the room.
My name is Miranda. I obviously work in
You guys are no fun.
I'm Cammy Haynes. I own Lulabelle Designs, a boutique in town, and see, I would probably say I like to be on Simpson's campus. I'm an alum and very involved with the college, and I think it's a beautiful place to walk my dogs.
Rob Keller, I'm the financial rep with Country Financial here on the square. I will, I enjoy seeing all the remodeled businesses on the square.
Mhm.
Those of us that have taken the time to invest back into our buildings and stuff, and then going in and seeing what they look like now, and that there's hope and they can actually be something for another, 50, 100 years.
And last but certainly not least,
Oh, Andy, the
that's not, what's your role with the city?
city project.
Oh, wonderful. Excellent. Good to have that accountability check here. Thanks for being here.
Well, I'm more interested in hearing about the program.
Wonderful, excellent. And this is going to be a silly question. Remind me who you all are. What is this group?
The Downtown Square Commission.
Commission. I'll say, so it is a formal commission of the city.
Yes.
Wonderful.
Just recently.
Hence the
appointed.
Roberts Rules of Order that were expertly implemented today. So
This is their third meeting, right?
wonderful, excellent. Well, this is wonderful, excellent. I couldn't remember if you were the Preservation Commission or what you were, but this answered that question directly. So, so you all won't be disappointed to say when I say that we're going to talk specifically about downtown. That's what we're going to talk about today, related to the tools and resources that are available for communities throughout the state of Iowa through the Iowa Economic Development Authority's Main Street Program and the Downtown Resource Center. All right, 500 fake points for whoever could tell me what town this in Iowa this is. It's not Winterset.
Centerville,
Oh, also was a previous.
Bloomfield.
Bloomfield, there we go. I was gonna say, someone's gonna figure this out, but it's just a ringer. This is Bloomfield. This is my hometown. This is where I got my start. My parents' business I grew up in this house right here. My parents' business was this house. I went to church here. I went to school here, and this was my playground. Bloomfield is a town of about 2,600. As I said, I'm a literal nerd to downtown. Downtown has been in my blood, whether I knew it or not, from the moment that I could start to explore on my own. Downtown is where we went to shop. Downtown is where we went to get in trouble. Downtown is where we went to sneak my first beer. It's all of those things happened in downtown. So it's one of those things that I would encourage you all, especially as a downtown commission here in Indianola, is to think about the why you're here personally, and investing your time into the downtown commission. But a little bit what was mentioned kind of at the tail end of our introductions is think about what you want to see happen, that vision in downtown. So downtown commission is probably going to have a vision for downtown that's probably pretty general, to improve the economic viability of downtown. But each of you probably bring your own whys to why you're here, to what you want to see, to what drives the passion in you. This is one of my big whys. When I go back to Bloomfield, all of the upper floors are now full, and partially when I started with Main Street, there was only two spaces that were full, and one of them was storage, which isn't really full. So when I go back, there's a point of pride for me to know that I played a small role in making sure that the economic viability of downtown Bloomfield is going to be around for a long time. A lot of investment has been made. There's been a lot of interest. There's been a lot of people who have looked at downtown differently because of some of the things that I have personally been involved with, but also the way that the community as a whole has really empowered everyone to love downtown and almost given them permission to love downtown. because over the course of time, that has dwindled away. That idea of really loving and having that attraction to downtown is not a norm for the entire community of Indianola or any community across the state. So really think, kind of reflect on your own, whether that be through our time here together today, or, especially by the time you sit down for dinner, just think about, even in your head, write it down. What's one reason why you were involved? That's beyond kind of the general. When we think about communities throughout the state, including Indianola, that are focusing on downtown revitalization, it comes back to that vision, it comes back to that idea that the community and you as a downtown commission have to know what that vision is, have to set that vision, and really have to be able to communicate that vision effectively. So others can plug in, whether it's the Chamber of Commerce, whether it's the Economic Development Corporation, whether it's someone who wants to open up a new business in downtown, they have to know where they fit within that vision. As we think about visions throughout the state of Iowa, or throughout downtowns across the country or the state, a lot of times the vision looks something like this. It's vibrant, and I heard someone say, excited to see people back on the sidewalks again. The banners that provide public art and color, the upper floors that are full, the storefronts that are vibrant, people that are sitting on the sidewalk. And I know, it's a brick house.
Yeah.
It's one of my favorite little areas there, because you have seating against the windows, and you have seating in the parking area. So when that's full, you can really kind of feel that vibrancy. So that gives you really that model for how you want to spread it throughout. But there again, it's understanding what that vision is, being able to communicate it effectively, and help get other people excited about what downtown is. And I hate to say it, but a lot of what downtown revitalization success strives from is excitement and momentum. There's a lot of, we're going to talk about strategies, we're going to talk about all kinds of ideas, but what it comes down to is the energy and momentum for people to want to get involved. The challenge for a lot of communities is that we start someplace closer to this than this. So it's sometimes hard to have this in front of you and think, oh man, we are super vibrant, or come downtown because it's a great space. And maybe they park in front of a building that looks like this and go, well, there's my first impression. And the hard part is that's what oftentimes happens. It's a first impression that sometimes you can't control. You could create that great space with your businesses. You could create that great space on the Courtyard Square, but you can't control where people enter your community. You can't control where people park, what people see as their first impression. So we really have to start to think back, you as a community group of leaders, of why downtown is important. And there's a lot of reasons why downtown Indianola and downtowns across the state are important to your community. And they're a symbol of so many things, everything from the economic health to the quality of life, to the symbol of the community in many cases. The identity of a community oftentimes strives from the downtown, or it's down close in pieces. The part that I have in bold there is something that oftentimes is overlooked, especially from quote unquote traditional economic development professionals, is that downtown is a key element to industrial, commercial, and professional recruitment. We hear time and time again that a community, whether it's as big as Indianola or as small as Woodbine, which is 1,500 people, downtown is the place where they bring the new superintendent that they're trying to woo, the new chiropractor, the new dentist, the new corporate leader. They're bringing them oftentimes downtown to show them the heart of the community. And oftentimes it's that downtown, the quality, the condition, the businesses that do or don't exist, that oftentimes creates that first impression, not just for someone like me that's coming to visit, but someone that is coming to invest, someone that's coming to move, someone that's coming to bring their entire family. And so many times we hear stories where a new doctor comes and they get the fam tour of the community. They see the best places to live, the best places to eat, the best places to walk. But then it's the plus one, it's the wife, it's the spouse that comes with them that's doing their own investigation that oftentimes gets those, the weeds between the cracks. It's the businesses that don't exist, the quality of life that they don't see in the community, that's the reason they want to live. So oftentimes it's that pillow talk, it's the drive home that makes the bigger impact, which then oftentimes starts with the downtown process. So as you think about downtown, there's that element of sense of place and placemaking, but there's also that element of the entire economic development ecosystem that exists in every community across the state that we have to invest in, human and financially, and to equally on both sides. This is one of my favorite quotes from my boss, and I feel like every time I say this, I'm just schmoozing up to her, but it's something that I think is really important to recognize. And she said in 2019 at a conference, the future of economic development must include an emphasis on place-based economic development. And place-based economic development is the idea of investing in a place where people want to be. A show of hands, how many people have heard of the term placemaking? Well, placemaking is kind of the big buzzword in community economic development right now. And there again, it's place-based economic development. It's the idea that you're wanting to create a place where people do not have to be. It's not where they work. It's not where they, they're doing other things. It's where they're choosing to be in a place. So for a statewide economic development director to say place-based economic development is a must, that's huge, because 10, 15, 20, 25 years ago, economic development was defined by bringing in major manufacturing, bringing in that job income producing business that's bringing 500 businesses into the downtown. And that's what economic development was. And everything else was just extracurricular activity. It's important to recognize you as community leaders that the work that you're doing with the Downtown Commission is super important to the entire ecosystem of economic development and sustainability here in Indianola. So as I've mentioned a couple times, Main Street is a program of the Iowa Economic Development Authority. Talk a little bit about what it is, but it's just that reflection that as you're doing your work, it's important to not look at your work as only building rehabilitation or only, be the beautification of downtown. It's really looking at the economic strength of downtown and looking at the partners that are necessary to make that happen, whether that be through the Chamber of Commerce that's working with businesses throughout the community and what that means for downtown, the Economic Development Corporation, city economic development leaders, and really looking at how you're thinking about downtown revitalization and your role as economic development leaders in the community, not just volunteers, not just downtown folks. It's looking and positioning yourself in a role of credibility in the community. There again, the energy, the momentum, and that credibility make the difference long term. So the reality is that Iowa has 99 counties across the state. There are over 940 communities. We'll talk in just a moment about the Main Street Iowa program that has 53 designated Main Street programs across the state of Iowa. So that leaves a balance of communities across the state that aren't designated for a number of reasons, and we could talk about why that is or isn't. From the Iowa Downtown Resource Center perspective, which is my team as well, we provide limited and fee-based services to communities across the state. One of those services is that downtown assessment program that you participated in, I believe in 2018-ish. But our services really are broken down into 3 areas. And I start the presentation about Main Street with these conversations because these are resources that you could take advantage of right now. So I don't want you to walk away from our time together thinking, you know what, Main Street's not a good fit for us. That guy doesn't have anything for us. There are lots of things that you could take advantage of. The first are networking opportunities. Everything from the Downtown Resource, which is our newsletter. I encourage everyone on the Downtown Commission to go to our website and sign up for the newsletter. It comes out 3 times a year. I'm biased, but I think it's just a really great encapsulation of the downtown successes that are happening throughout the state. Downtown Forums just happened last month, but they are community conversations that we get to communities together regionally and talk about key downtown revitalization strategies. We talked about a really sexy topic the last couple of weeks about nuisance properties, which is an important topic, but it's not the topic that is it's not the hook to get a whole lot of people there. But that happens every June, so it's something to look out for. And then most importantly, coming up is the Iowa Downtown Conference. It's our state downtown conference. It's going to be in downtown Pella this year, which is just down the road. So I would highly encourage, especially you all as downtown leaders, but city partners, economic development partners, to consider bringing a good crew from Indianola to the downtown conference. It's the single biggest collection of downtown and Main Streeters across the state. There again, energy, momentum, all of that kind of fun stuff builds from those conferences. The red items at the top are the technical assistance items. I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about these because the downtown assessment has been fairly recent here, and it's something that I think we should come back to, but just knowing that we provide a number of fee-based assessment programs. And then we have 2 financial resources, 2 grant programs that are available to communities. The first is the Downtown Housing Grant. We are just in the midst of awarding $20 million of downtown housing dollars across the state of Iowa. We anticipate a second round in the fall. That probably won't be 20 million, but we're expecting in the $10 million range. And then the other is the Community Catalyst Grant. That's a $100,000 bricks and mortar grant that's given on an annual basis. Any downtown across the state is eligible. And it's really looking at iconic and or catalytic projects. So what's an investment project in downtown Indianola that could be take advantage of this grant that could help influence others and encourage others to invest as well. At this point, we're going to transition to talking specifically about Main Street programs and the Main Street program. Before I do that, does anyone have any questions about the Downtown Resource Center or anything that I've mentioned thus far? Is this already overwhelming? Okay, good, because it's about to get a lot deeper. The Downtown Resource Center is kind of the umbrella of the Main Street program, and then the Main Street program kind of takes a deep dive. I often talk about the Downtown Resource Center as communities that want to date. We use the Downtown Resource Center services. The communities that want to get married and have a long-term commitment come in and take advantage of the Main Street program. So the Main Street program is, like I said, a grassroots economic development program that drives downtown revitalization as a key element and a catalyst for economic development in the community. We'll talk about why communities become a Main Street program or make that decision to become a Main Street program. And we'll also talk about communities that go through the investigation process of, is this the right program for us, which is an important process for any communities along the lines. But really, when we think about the Main Street program, it really takes a look at a very deliberate and focused process for the downtown revitalization work. And that process really looks at how do we reestablish value in a place that may have had value taken away from it in different ways. So when we're, whether we're revitalizing a car or revitalizing a building or we are revitalizing an entire downtown, it looks at how do we put value back in it strategically, physically, the physical value, the economic value, the social value, and the civic value. So it's that idea of not just happenstance of let's pick some projects that sound fun, is being very deliberate about how we implement those projects long-term. So those four values are the values that drive commercial and real estate development that then in and around 1979, 1980, Main Street America, which is our national mothership, created a program that wrapped revitalization around these four forces of value of civic, social, economic, and physical. They make up what's now called the Main Street 4-point approach. So the Main Street 4-point approach really drives this as the foundation for who we are and what we do as a program long-term. And those 4 points align with really creating the skeleton for the process, but organization develops partners, promotion develops markets, economic vitality develops business, and design develops space. So as we talk about the 4-point approach, we think about how we can incorporate these 4 values into everything we're doing. So if I buy a building and I'm revitalizing or I'm rehabbing that building, I'm thinking about how I'm putting economic value, social value, civic value, and physical value back in that building. Physical value through the physical rehabilitation, economic value by making sure that it's filled both with the upstairs and downstairs and it's producing economically in the community. Social value by making sure that it has an opportunity to engage in the context of downtown, whether it's a service business or a retail business. And then that civic value really creates the values and the points, or excuse me, the values and the partnerships. How are we making sure that whether it be through the revitalization or through the implementation of the building that we're bringing in people to engage in that effort all the way through. So it's one building takes those 4 points as well as the whole district takes those 4 points. As I said, this process was created by Main Street America in and around 1980. Main Street Iowa was created in 1986, primarily as a reaction to the farm crisis that was hitting Iowa's economy very hard. The state brought in the Main Street program really as an opportunity to have some sort of tool to help with rural revitalization and the bolstering of the economy. It's important to recognize that Main Street America is Main Street Iowa is a coordinating program of Main Street America. We enter into a licensing agreement to implement the Main Street program here in the state of Iowa each year. And there is a competitive process for communities to actively participate in the Main Street program. So I can't leave and Charlie can't call me and say, hey, you know what? The Downtown Commission decided we want to be a Main Street program. There's an entire process that does that. What it does, it helps protect the brand of the Main Street program. but it also helps protect the services that we're going to talk about that are available on a free and ongoing basis to the communities throughout the Main Street Iowa network. I do want to spend just a little bit of time talking about the 4 points as just a basic understanding of what each of those are. And this is the area where I would encourage, there again, you as a downtown commission, I'm going to present them as a whole, but there is all kinds of opportunities for you to take these a la carte. You could take these lessons and really implement them through the different things that you're planning to do long-term. But economic vitality really addresses the economic point. It's about repositioning the district's market economy through that the retention, expansion, and recruitment of community of businesses in the downtown. So here again, this is really the economic driver of what downtown revitalization programs look at. I would encourage, as you start to think about it, and what we talk a lot about in the Main Street program is everyone wants to jump right to recruitment. We want to recruit, we want to bring new businesses downtown. We have a 5-step recruitment process. It's business retention, business retention, business retention, business expansion, and then business recruitment. And it's the idea that through the work of creating a system to sustain businesses, you create an environment that is ripe for businesses to come into the community or come into the downtown setting. So really thinking about holistically how we think about business in the downtown. The most important part that is important to talk about here is that last one, property development. If you own a building, you are a business owner. There again, business development the development of a property, the ownership of a property is a business owner in downtown. So really thinking about how we incorporate real estate development into that conversation as we talk about the economic vitality point. Promotion is the social value. A lot of folks refer to this as the party point. I would encourage you to think of this as a vital tool to local economic development efforts, whether that's the chamber or the CVB or another entity that is really guiding the programming of events in the downtown. It's making sure that when downtown Indianola is hosting events, that they're aligning with your market reality. You're taking in market data, you're taking in the identity of the community, and you're using that social value to build the social capital in your community. The other side is to recognize that there are different types of events. There are retail events that are there to make cash registers ring or to help make cash registers ring, but there are also special events. Special events are events that bring people to the community to build memories, to help give them a reason to come downtown, but may not be there to encourage the shopping side of things. So really making sure that when you all collectively are looking at the programming calendar for downtown, there is a balance of both of those programs and efforts. Organization is the unsexy point of Main Street. It is the internal value. It is focusing on fundraising, volunteer development, and communication. It's the idea that these are the 3 biggest challenges of any nonprofit or religious institution across the country: getting volunteerism, raising money, and communicating what you're doing. It's no different in Main Street communities. These are the 3 biggest challenges in all Main Street communities across the state. But what we want to do is make sure that we're focusing on these efforts deliberately to create a strong nonprofit or a strong organization in order to sustain the revitalization down the line. The last of the points is design. And design is a lot of times the gateway into interest in the Main Street program. It's all things physical in the downtown. It's supporting the rehabilitation of downtown, especially for work that you're already doing, like the streetscape project, the new courthouse square. There's a lot of that physical design that's already been done. So it's really, how do we activate that space? How do we make sure that it's being used and not just walked by? But it's really how the design side of things helps improve the look and feel of downtown. So the idea is that these 4 points come together to create the strategy of how we're going to move forward. But it's also important to recognize that there is a process to it. And that's what that arrow represents: building that community vision and market understanding. There again, we've already talked about that at the beginning. How do we make sure that we have a clear vision for what we want downtown to be that is bought in by a number of people, not everyone in the room having a separate vision for what your vision is for downtown. It's what our vision is for downtown. Main Street America talks about transformation strategies, but it's the idea of, once we create the vision, we create a finite number of priorities to implement downtown revitalization. And then we incorporate each of those 4 points into it. So we'll use downtown housing as an example. Many communities, many major programs have downtown housing as one of 2 or 3 of those transformation strategies, with the idea that that is one of the things that they want to accomplish in downtown. And then they work with how each of those 4 points, and oftentimes committees, are addressing downtown housing. So it's not the design committee, working with design services to improve the buildings. It's how the design services to improve those buildings is helping to support the revitalization of upper floor housing to bring people into downtown. The economic vitality point may be working with the city on incentives to create an incentive to have someone invest in downtown. The promotions point may be doing upstairs downtown tours to encourage people to, kind of like a home tour or garden tour, but for upper floor housing, to encourage people to come down and experience what it could look and feel like to live downtown. So you see how each of those 4 points starts to impact that one strategy from that perspective. The last of the points is something that I think Iowans and maybe humans in general are not very good at. And it's talking about the successes of what's happened. We are good at creating visions. We are good at creating plans. We're not good at telling the story of what happened. We had X number of new businesses. We had X number of private dollars invested in downtown. Maybe we could tell the qualitative story about the human investment. Why did someone come and open a business? How does that impact their life? Just really start to tell the robust human story of what the Main Street program or what the revitalization process is. So we have 53 designated Main Street programs across the state. They range in size from Lansing and Clarence that are just under 1,000 people, all the way up to some of the largest downtown districts in the state, including some neighborhood commercial districts. For example, in Cedar Rapids, we don't work with downtown Cedar Rapids, but we do work with the Czech Village and New Bohemia districts that are just south of downtown. What I appreciate about the Main Street program is the Main Street program and process could work in literally any downtown in any community across the state that wants to work the approach. But what I also appreciate about it is there's enough rigidity that when a community like Indianola or Waterloo or Bloomfield or Ottumwa emotionally buy into the Main Street approach, there's enough rigidity that they know what they're getting into. But also there's parameters set that helps guide the work that you're doing. Does anyone have any questions about the map, or who is on the map or not on the map, or anything related to observations?
It's funny, I'm a shopper, and a lot of communities that I like going, or I drive through, I'm like, oh, there's ones on there that I would assume, in my head, I was kind of guessing ones to be in there,
Yeah.
but.
Yeah, give me an example.
I think Somerset,
Mhm.
for their size of town, it's
Yeah.
a good sized town. I think they, like, in my mind, I like going to the downtown area that all 4 sides of their downtown are worth walking.
Yeah.
And I feel like they do a good job of doing that. And I think
Mhm.
that's a hole that we have in I think our east side we're worried. We need something on the east side.
Mhm.
Albia is one that I think is a really cute little town.
Yeah.
Smaller, but, Earlham's a good one.
Mhm.
They're a good
growing.
target, yeah.
I've
they're
seen Main Street
growing.
go to work in Osceola.
Mhm.
I have the buildings that have been saved there. This is the town I grew up in.
Oh, interesting. Mhm.
Why is it?
Why is it Indianola?
Yeah.
I don't know, I think that's where we're here today.
Yeah, I don't have the answer for that either. It's something that we've always kind of looked at.
Mhm.
Sorry, newbie, so I didn't
Yeah.
know if that was like
Yeah.
sensitive subject, but is.
Has Indianola been a target for Main Street, Iowa?
So we never target anyone. And we'll talk. Yeah, right. No. And the reason is we'll talk a little bit more about this. Is I have 9 people on my team, and we have a very robust amount of services. So we're not out saying, Indianola, we want you.
Right.
We want you to experience those other communities, to see Osceola and be like, what in the world is happening there? Or drive to Ottumwa and say, this was a different place 10 years ago, and what changed? And we want that to be more organic from a need and a want, because a community that comes to it that way is going to be more invested long-term into the process, rather than if I came and said, I absolutely want Indianola to apply, because then it feels like it's me forcing you to do something that you don't want to do. The other side is we have to create balance. We have 53 programs. I would say our capacity is probably 60. But over the course of the 35 years that the Main Street program's been in existence, we've worked with 75 communities. So communities do leave the Main Street program for a number of different reasons. But as you look at communities like Winterset, or oftentimes people bring up Pella or Decorah or Denison, communities that have statewide recognition for being strong downtowns. The reality is there's a point in a community's life where they want outside assistance. There's a point in a community's life where they maybe need outside assistance. So a community like Pella, we work effectively with Pella, with the Downtown Resource Center. Our downtown conference is going to be there. They have a very strong and vibrant, maybe one of the strongest, retail-based downtowns in the state. They're a point in a community where they don't necessarily need or want our help, but we're there to support as necessary. To be honest with you, when I do this presentation, a lot of times people mention you all as a community of like, oh, I guess I thought Indianola would have been on that map. So that's that reflection of, yeah, right, exactly. That's a good reflection of you statewide. But it's that idea of starting there again to understand why you want to be here on the Downtown Commission, what you all want to accomplish. And then as we talk more about what Main Street is as a program, is that something that we want to create here from your side of things?
I've had people tell me, if you can get people from the Pella community to come here to shop, you're doing a good thing.
Yeah.
And we are, don't you see people from, and we have a lot of people come from West Des Moines and Ankeny, even Waukee.
Yeah.
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 So we're becoming more of a destination to shop, and I always ask people when they come in, what brought you in, or how
Excellent.
you find us.
I love those questions.
Yeah.
And I love business owners who ask those questions.
Oh, yeah, I'm not sure.
One question I have about the previous is.
Yeah.
So one thing that I think that kind of landlocks our square a little bit is investors. A town like Pella, I feel like they've kept it members only enough that their business owners and their building owners are all local. Where if you look at our assessors page and you look around, mailing address is New York for a really big chunk of that property. And
I'll proactively pause any mention of Pella again. I know I started that ballpark. Pella is it's a different world. But I would say what you're communicating now is probably more reflective of a majority of communities where absentee owners, whether that's a good or a bad thing, outside investment, whether that's a good or a bad thing, is a reality for a lot of downtowns. So as we talk more about what the Main Street program is and does, that's where it's really trying to create empowerment of the local community to help take control of to help as much as you can take control of what the future is, rather than right now. And I'm making an assumption, but right now it's kind of at the whim of whoever wants to do something. It's at the whim of the energy and the motivation of one person. A single person to come in and do what they choose to do. So really what it's doing, and I'll go against my word again, Pella has done a good job of that. If you want to come to Pella, there is an expectation of what that investment is going to look like. There's an expectation of what that niche is. There's an expectation of what the quality is from that perspective. So in that line, there's a lot to learn from communities like Pella or like other communities that have that strong identity with them. And that's what the Main Street program would help to do long-term. So the mission in a big chunk is to improve the social and economic well-being of Iowa's communities. And I just want to highlight a couple areas. It's that selected communities. As I mentioned, there is a competitive application process. Happens on the even years. So we're actually in the tail end of the application process. There are 5 communities that are applying to be Main Street program right now. Generally speaking, we take up to 2 every other year to make sure that we're supporting those communities in a very effective and strong way while balancing the services that we also provide to our network of communities. The second line is to capitalize on the unique identity, assets, and character. It's a reflection that Main Street is an asset-based economic development strategy. So they're again helping Indianola, helping Ottumwa, helping Bloomfield be the best Bloomfield, Ottumwa, and in Indianola they could be respectfully. It's not helping Indianola be another community. It's looking at the assets that exist here. Simpson, Lake Aquabi on the outside of town, the strength of the school, the strength of the community partnerships that you have, but most importantly from the Main Street program, the assets and opportunities that you have within your downtown district that help creates that strong heart, which just like our bodies, strong heart creates the foundation for a strong body. That's what we want downtown to be. The last is that is of the historic commercial district. It reflects the idea that Main Street is a laser approach to economic development. With each of those 53 designated Main Street programs, we work with them to identify a very defined Main Street district. So that is the focus of their downtown revitalization work. That is the area that we focus investment in on. That's the area that you focus your time and effort in on a local Main Street program perspective. That's something that people like, and some people that people don't like, is the idea that over the course of the last 25 years, our economic development realities have tried to be all things to all people all the time, which is okay. But if we're wanting to focus revitalization, we have to focus in on where we want that revitalization to occur. And that's where the Main Street program comes into play. So I want to shift the conversation a little bit to how kind of logistically Main Street works in communities across the state. We have a three-legged partnership between the Iowa Economic Development Authority, the city in which the Main Street program exists, and a local nonprofit that is the implementer of the Main Street program. That nonprofit has to be primarily dedicated to downtown revitalization. And I say primarily dedicated because we do have some communities that are chamber Main Street programs. We have some communities that are economic development Main Street programs. So there are multiple organizations within one whole. But ideally, what oftentimes is the most sustainable, if there's a nonprofit that has a direct board of directors that are dedicated to guiding the vision and the future of downtown revitalization, we require a paid Main Street executive director. In communities over 5,000, that director needs to be a full-time 40-hour-a-week person that's dedicated to Main Street program work. And then, like most nonprofits, there is an army of volunteers. Main Street is a volunteer-driven program. And so sometimes, as you see on the slide, there are 4-point committees. So there's a design committee, an organization committee, an economic vitality committee, and a promotions committee. In other communities, especially as we're really seeing volunteerism change as a whole, we're seeing kind of a shift to more task-oriented committees. So if there's a farmer's market, there may be a farmer's market task force that only focuses on the farmer's market, or there may be a task force that is the fundraising task force that focuses on the investment drive or fundraising activities and things along those lines. It's also important, as I said, that that contract or that relationship that we have is three-legged between us, the city, and the nonprofit. So it's important to recognize that locally, when we refer to the Main Street program, for example, I was just in Cedar Falls, and downtown Cedar Falls is a very wonderful Main Street program. When I refer to the local Cedar Falls program, I'm referring to the nonprofit Cedar Falls Community Main Street, but I'm also referring to the city, because the city is that key element to that strength of that public-private partnership that is not only required for the Main Street program, but is effective to have to help create sustainability long-term. So how Main Street, oh, go ahead. Yeah. Oh, for 5, a full-time director is required. In communities under 5,000, we require that director is at least 25 hours a week. But there is in all 53 of those dots, there is a paid executive director. So Main Street really becomes kind of reflective of the geography of the downtown as it relates to the economic development ecosystem. A lot of times there are different entities that already exist. I know you have an economic development corporation. I know you have a chamber of commerce, obviously the city, you have financial institution, regional efforts, different things along those lines. Oftentimes you can imagine without a Main Street program in this diagram, there are reasons that those entities connect, but they are very specific. The city is going to connect with the business owners, maybe when you do a streetscape project or maybe when there's something happening, but other times maybe there's not regular communication. The Chamber of Commerce may connect with financial institutions when it's time for investment with membership drives or fundraising, but there may not be an active conversation happening between them. Downtown creates a space is a space that belongs to everyone. So thus the Main Street program creates an organization that touches all of those entities on a regular basis, which then in many cases, from our experience, helps create a stronger web of partnerships throughout the community. And that's to me, one of the really cool things about the Main Street program that's impossible to document. It's impossible to tell you that every community absolutely has this happen, because a lot of times it's these subtle partnerships or conversations or relationships that are built between these entities, because Main Street is the conduit. Main Street is the connective tissue helping that happen. But as I mentioned, we've talked about the 4-point approach. talked about transformation strategies. We've talked about missions and visions and all those kinds of things. Without the people being excited about downtown, downtown revitalization is only just an interest. It's only just something you want to happen. So really thinking about how you become kind of the implementer, the leaders, the people that are pulling people together and being the positive voice of change. And I think over the last couple of years, you've had really good practice at that. The topic of conversation around the table, right when people first came, was streetscape stuff. It's shaking buildings, it's streets closed, it's things like that that are really all challenging, negative things. But you all have that ability to say, you know what, we're almost done. You know what, this is going to be spectacular when it's done. Do you remember those cracks that we're creating around the streets? They're not going to be there anymore. That space that's now created in the courtyard, how can we activate that? Sometimes it's that positive voice of change that's reflected in people that look an awful lot like this, that are really making the difference to engage and to excite the community long-term. So this is my slide with inevitably too many words on it. And what I will do is I will send this, I'll send my slides to Charlie so he could pass it around to you all. But these are the basic expectations, ongoing expectations of Main Street programs that reflect very similarly with communities who are interested in becoming a Main Street program. So we've talked about that nonprofit, we've talked about the paid executive director, we've talked a little bit about just the idea that there needs to be a broad base of public support for this Main Street program, for this effort downtown, and really that awareness. What we haven't talked about, which is wonderful that our city finance director is here, is there is a requirement for the city to be a financial investor into that nonprofit Main Street program. So it's not about the city investing $3 million into a streetscape project downtown, or $50,000 into creating a local facade program for the downtown. It's about investing financially into the operation of the Main Street program to really create stake and accountability between that effort. But the other thing is over the course of time, city council members change, leadership changes, and we want to make sure that it's not just a thumbs up, like, yeah, Main Street sounds like a good idea, keep up the good work. It's, we gave you $25,000 on a regular basis. You're coming to us and telling us what our return on investment was. What was the impact that our $25,000 investment had into that local Main Street program from an operations perspective? What's that?
The city's not expected to fund it.
No, and actually that's a good point. I didn't put my slide in there, but generally speaking, it's in between 20 and 30% of the funding is generally speaking from the city. And then about a third of the funding, the balance of that funding is traditional investment drive, stakeholder investment. About 20% is earned income in some way, shape, or form. Some Main Street programs own buildings and collect, have rent from that building. In Valley Junction, they sell a boatload of beer, and about a third of their budget comes from beer sales during their 68 events that happen throughout the year. And then the balance of the funding comes through major corporate giving, which is about 15 to 20% of every Main Street program, whether that be major corporate entities or partners that exist in the community, financial institutions, utility, things along those lines. So yeah, it's a kind of a mix of how that funding happens. But that is an important element that is oftentimes a trip hazard for communities that want to become a Main Street program, but maybe the city's like, you know what, we just don't have the ability or desire to invest in something like this right now from that perspective. Does anyone have any questions as it relates to the expectations?
I do.
Yeah.
So you said that some of these programs work within the chamber. Like, what does that look like? I mean, can you elaborate on that a little bit? How the chamber works together?
It's messy
Okay.
in all ways, shapes, and forms. But really what it does is it forces, whether and I'm not just relating to, the chamber, it's also any other entity. Because then the reason I say it's messy is because I'll just use another community as an example. So I'm not always talking about Indianola and you. I'll use the example of Fort Dodge. Fort Dodge is bigger than Indianola, but they have an economic development alliance, a chamber, and a Main Street. And there, the chamber has a very broad mission to support all of the businesses in the community. In some cases, the chamber is a regional, so it's the the Sheraton Area Chamber of Commerce. I don't know if Indianola is just the city or if it's the community or the broader community as a whole. But when you layer on an entity that has a very broad mission with an entity like a Main Street focus that has a very narrow focus, the reason it becomes messy is because there are people that don't care if there's a downtown focus. Maybe I'm a corporate entity on the outside of town, or I own a flower shop that's, not inside the Main Street district. maybe don't care about it. And I become chamber president and I say, you know what, Main Street doesn't need to be a focus area anymore. So there's that side, there's a political will side of things to be able to say, if you're a chamber Main Street program, that the chamber's mission, the name, the focus, the scope of work, the plan of action, all of that has to be focused on a downtown first priority. So it's the idea that because the community wants to be a Main Street program, there is that deliberate focus on downtown. So it's not the idea that the Indianola Chamber could just say, you know what, hey, you know what, we're going to be a Main Street program too. And our operations are going to stay the same. Our staffing's going to stay the same. Our mission's going to stay the same. Everything's going to stay the same, because our advisory council is going to go, then why do you want to be a Main Street program? How are you demonstrating that? And I could use Albia as an example. I think Albia was mentioned by someone that aren't currently on the map. The Albia Chamber of Commerce is currently applying to become a Main Street program right now. And so within their board of directors, they kind of did a refocus, the whole board, to say, you know what, if we're going to do this long-term, we need to make sure that the policies, the bylaws, the DNA of who we are as an organization is saying we have a focus on downtown revitalization as a catalyst to support the entire community, rather than a mission to support the entire community. So it's that idea that it takes a lot of political will to kind of come down and zoom in on what that means. With that said, there are very successful programs like Waverly, which is a very similar population community that has a Chamber Main Street program. And they have 100% built Main Street and downtown into their DNA, which helps create, a great deal of success from that perspective.
That's interesting to me. I also sit on the chamber board. And one thing that I think we need to really map out with this particular group is all of our organizations that touch on downtown area and really organize. We have the chamber, we have Hometown Pride, we have beautification, we have downtown merchants. And I think there's a lot of blurred lines of what each one is responsible for.
Yep.
And like the chamber, you can't have this downtown be too much of a focus. It's 11% of our investment.
Yeah.
So for those investors around, it would be an insult for us to focus on the downtown group. So, but we're also only one full-time person in that chamber office, which is hard to run a community of 15,000 people.
Yeah.
So I'm sitting here thinking of like logistics of that. And I'm like, if we could incorporate it in our chamber office and have it, I don't know, with nonprofit and all of that, I don't know if it could just be a subcommittee of the nonprofit to have that second person that's only required to work the 25 hours, but they're 40 hours. And
Right. Well, they would be in Indianola, you would have a 40-hour.
you would have a 40
You'd have a
hour.
full-time.
Okay.
And I would look to a couple different examples of how that's worked really effectively. One is Marion. Again, it's a larger community, but the Marion Marion Area Chamber of Commerce is a very strong chamber of commerce. And what they've done is they've created basically they're the same nonprofit, but within the umbrella of the Marion Chamber of Commerce, they have Uptown Marion, which is their Uptown Marion Main Street program that focuses in on downtown revitalization. So they have a separate board, There's still the fiduciary and the legal duties of the board of directors, the chamber board of directors, but the Uptown board is the board is within this piece. The Uptown board is this, and then the chamber board and the structure is above this, but there is an entire organization that's volunteer-based, an organization, a scope of work, everything is dedicated to Main Street. So if you went in, just as layman, just to go in and experience that, you would say, oh, Marion has a separate Uptown Marion Main Street program, has a separate identity, has everything. But really what it is it's an arm of the broader whole from that perspective. But the exercise that you talked about of, doing the asset mapping and understanding what the different organizations are doing right now. And most importantly, draw a line and put 2022 and say, that's what everyone does up to today. Most importantly, what does everyone want to do into the future? Because I talk to a lot of chambers of commerce, a lot of CVBs that are, because there's no other game in town, there's no other, they feel like they have to do everything. They have to do housing, and they have to do events, and they have to do business support, and they have to do community marketing, and they're doing all of these things. And they're saying, gosh, if we had a group, if we had a nonprofit that could just take this off of us, maybe that one staff person could be more effective. Maybe that organization could be all that more effective. It gives that rocket engine, it removes that anchor from it. And oftentimes downtown revitalization is that anchor, because downtown revitalization is messy. You know, it's building owners that butt up to each other. It's building owners that don't live here. It's people that live upstairs and have to park somewhere and balance the parking for all of the other things. It's the grants that oftentimes come for downtown revitalization that are a little bit harder. It's the organizational piece that's just a little bit harder because of the nature of things. So oftentimes that assessment becomes a really important piece of how the groups either come together, or maybe there's these groups that come together to say, you know what, the beautification group, maybe it's and I don't know anything, but maybe it's a group of volunteers that don't really have a set leadership, that then all of a sudden could be organized within the, you know, they could stay intact, but they're organized underneath the design value of the Main Street program. And then that creates that staff person to help guide that process moving forward. The other effort is Newton. Newton is a town that's obviously very similar to Indianola in size and scale. They have the Newton Area Chamber of Commerce. Obviously, they have some big ticket things, just like Indianola has, but you know, Newton has the Speedway, Newton has DMAC, Newton has a number of kind of landmark things that aren't in downtown, but they impact downtown. And so the Chamber of Commerce over the course of time and the Main Street program over the course of time have really created a nice partnership on not turf, but it's the idea that this is what this group is going to do, and they're going to do a really good job of it. And this is what the Main Street group is going to do, and they're going to do a really good job of it. So it's understanding how everyone fits together. The communities where it doesn't work is where there are turf battles. And the chamber saying, we've been here for 85 years. We're not going to change, but we're going to keep this the same. So if Main Street's going to come in, your turf is way over there in the corner, whether it relates to fundraising, whether it relates to all of those other things. So really understanding how people are coming together becomes one of the most important parts. All right, so I'll jump into the fun part, it's the services. So this gets into why communities come to be a Main Street program in the first place. We become a partner with the local Main Street program on a number of different levels. So first and foremost, we are a technical assistance partner. We have an entire suite of technical services that range from design services to business services to capacity building, fundraising assistance that really are provided on a free and ongoing basis to the downtown revitalization process through the life of the program. So Burlington has been participating in the Main Street program since 1986. They have had free design assistance for downtown buildings and business owners since 1986. So it's that opportunity that it's free and ongoing over the course of time. The second piece is accountability. This is the piece that some people love and some communities love and some communities don't love. This becomes a big reason why communities don't jump into the Main Street program. Main Street isn't dictatorial. We don't come in and say, these are your goals. These are what you're going to do, and this is how you're going to paint or not paint your building. We're not here to tell you what to do. We're here to provide guidance to direct you. But the most important piece that we provide is we provide accountability for you to implement what you said you were going to implement. So we may help you create the strategic plan. You may develop your own strategic plan on at least an annual basis. I or someone from my team are in each of the 53 Main Street programs asking questions of, hey, what did you accomplish last year? Why didn't you accomplish those things that you didn't accomplish? If you're not going to accomplish those things, let's pull them off the list and put something on the list that we can accomplish. So it's the idea that accountability is something that communities love to hate or love from the both perspectives. But Main Street is one of the only economic development programs that holds you accountable to someone else other than yourselves, which there again becomes important from a push, poke, and prod mentality. We partner with the development of the local nonprofit, but also the development of local Main Street programs. I'm fortunate to have 5 people on my team that provide technical assistance related to property development. A lot of times the development of downtown property is someone who is maybe going to buy one building in their entire life, maybe going to open up one business in their entire life, maybe going to do one upper floor project, apply for one grant in their entire life. And if you're doing those things once, the learning curve is really steep. But what we hope is with our team providing that free and ongoing assistance, that learning curve goes from this to this. There's still a lot of work. There's still a lot to learn. But if you have a design specialist that's there to help guide the design decisions on the rehabilitation of the building, you have a design assistant that's there to do a rendering of a floor plan for the upper floor of what that could be. You know, you're taking off some of those challenges that people oftentimes go, you know what, I don't know what to do. Oftentimes they hire a local contractor that maybe has never worked on a historic building and goes to the local hardware store and buys the same materials that they put on a new construction residential building on a historic building downtown. So there's ways that we could help guide the efforts there. Marketing, we are partnered with Travel Iowa, which is their state's tourism and marketing wing. So we do a lot of cooperative downtown revitalization marketing. A lot of times communities communities are buying ads. We do co-op marketing with that. A lot of times communities don't have a desire to market specifically the downtown. There again, it's not a shot to anyone, but a lot of times chambers and CVBs aren't focusing on the downtowns of a community. They're focusing on, you know, the balloon festival. They're focusing on things that are the landmark elements of what your communities are, but maybe not marketing the downtowns from those perspectives. So we do a lot of cooperative efforts to the marketing. And last but certainly not least, we are a financial partner. We have 3 financial programs that are dedicated specifically to Main Street programs. But what I don't want you to focus on is that's the reason why Indianola wants to be a Main Street program, because I always put this chart up, and that red piece of the pie is the amount of effort that is money and grants. The blue is technical assistance, program support, structure, and accountability. So when you think about why a community wants to become a Main Street program, it's the blue section, not the red section. It's that idea that we want that structure and accountability to move forward. When I talk about grants and financial institutions, I need to update this, but I mentioned 3. There are, on this list, there are, of all these grants, the 2 that are on the bottom are dedicated to Main Street programs. So Indianola is not eligible to apply right now. All of the other ones that are not highlighted are that you are 100% eligible to apply for. Generally speaking, any building in your downtown. The green highlight here are programs that we have influence over. So they're programs that have a downtown revitalization focus, or they're programs that we help influence the competitive edge of a community that's dedicated to Main Street. From that side. Thanks. I want to quickly just run through examples of some of our services. The first and probably the highest used service is our design services. So our design services provide free and ongoing design-oriented support for local building rehabilitation. So if Amanda's buying a building downtown and you say, you're buying this building in downtown and you want to make the building look better, and maybe that's all you know, and you have a budget of $20,000 and you just don't know how to spend it. Our design folks who come in and produce full color renderings. There's a full kind of a summary report that goes with it to get from point A to point B. Here are the steps, here are the considerations. Here are preservation tech notes that you should consider when considering a historic limestone building. One of the things that our design assistants will do is they'll do the full-fledged building. You know, they'll do more of a traditional restoration from a rendering perspective, but then they're also going to create levels. We used to call it the Volkswagen, the Ford, and the BMW, but now you could call it whatever you want to, but it's level 1, 2, and 3 to say, maybe I have 5,000, maybe I have 50,000, or maybe I'll do whatever it takes to really prioritize the investment into what's happening. But a lot of times our design assistants are helping push the property owner beyond what they want to do from the beginning, not feasibly and financially can do. But in this case, this building owner just wanted to paint, and you can't see it, but it's a green band where it says Val Specialties. They just wanted to paint the green band and replace the sign. That's all they wanted. So our design assistants said, hey, did you know you have a really great historic building underneath there? And that the upper floor was completely vacant, and all the benefits of having upper floor housing for the downtown and for the business owner. The business owner took a lot of the recommendations. We help connect them to architects, to contractors. We help them apply for the historic tax credit program, help connect them to other grant programs, which leveraged out the level of investment that they needed to make. Now this building has a first floor retail business. It's Mormon's Closure. On the second floor, There are 6 residential units. It was completely vacant before. All 6 of those units, generally speaking, have a wait list for people who want to live in this building or want to live in downtown. When you talk to Scott, who owns this building and this business, he will tell you that he absolutely did not want to be a landlord. He absolutely did not want to have upper floor units above his business. He will absolutely tell you that without those, he would not have been able to expand his business into the building next door. He would not be able to be as successful of a business owner as he is right now because he was able to take risks, because the upper floor portion of his business is providing a lot of the sustainable income and the bottom line for what his business is as a whole. So it's not, his business is not the closure. His business is that building. It's the buildings, the business, the upper floor housing that become the element of his business. But we've worked with projects that are small. This is in State Center. But one of the things that oftentimes happens when we talk about the design services, it's not just about the design services, it's about how each of those 4 points are represented in each of these projects. This was a project that enabled them to recruit a new pharmacy to town. State Center is a town of about 1,200 people located in between Ames and State Center, or Ames and Marshalltown. They did not have a pharmacy in town. Telehealth was a new thing. They were trying to really recruit and build on it. This project helped leverage the interest to bring New Cara to the community from that perspective. So there again, it was a building rehabilitation project, but from an economic vitality point, it allowed them to activate the space in a way that the community needed. This is a project in a rural community in Western Iowa. Spectacular project. It's an old Oddfellows Lodge. The upper floor was completely vacant. The first floor was completely vacant. A financial advisor purchased the building, moved his business to the first floor, expanded his staff to include CPAs and different elements of the financial planning business. But the upstairs, they used our market analysis service to understand what the need for the community was. So he was going to do upper floor housing, which is obviously great no matter where you are. But what they found out was they have no lodging within a 15-mile radius of this community. So they actually added 4 Airbnb units on the upper floor. So this is the upper floor space here is spectacular. I mean, you'd look at these units and you would not think they're in a town of 1,000 in Western Iowa, but you look at this as an opportunity that there's some of the best lodging in Western Iowa is now in this building, in this rural community, which that lodging has now supported the coffee shop and the restaurant that is located just down the street. And so you can see how this project becomes a catalyst for other things in a community of 1,000, which there again, you would not think of this type of level and capacity of a project.
That is exactly what I want for, I just purchased an upper floor this fall.
Spectacular.
So anyone I want an Airbnb so bad.
Excellent.
That's exactly what I wanted to do.
Excellent. Well, I could point you to this, but the better one would actually be a project in Grundy Center that recently did that. It's Airbnb, but they partnered with the hospital to create
Wow.
long-term stays
Yeah.
for traveling nurses and doctors that are coming into the community. So from a business owner, a business owner,
Mhm.
you then would have that sustainable income.
Yeah.
This is a project that I love in Clarence. Clarence is a town of 960 people. This is a concrete block building. It is not on the National Register of Historic Places. It may never be on the National Register of Historic Places. It was originally a kind of a motorcycle car shop. There's a garage in the back. She converted it into her business in the front called Onion Grove Mercantile. If you're going down Highway 30 west of Cedar Rapids, highly recommend stopping here. Onion Grove is a spectacular business that there again, you walk into the business and you don't expect that business in Clarence, Iowa. But the other cool thing is it was literally 2 planter boxes, paint, 3 window or 3 lights in the flower boxes. That was the improvement. So the improvement was just around $1,000 to take this from the left to the right, which there again just reinforces the idea that not every project on Main Street is a $750,000 project. There are projects that are under 1,000 that are guided through quality design that make a gigantic impact in downtown. So we've talked a lot about the design services from the kind of the big ticket sexy side of things, but I would say about 75% of what our design team does is very unsexy maintenance assessments. It's and I actually started when I started in 2002 with Main Street, Iowa. I was a design specialist. I have a historic preservation background, and I would say a high percentage of what I did was reconnecting gutters on the rear portions of buildings, up on roofs, saying, you know what, don't spend $5,000 on your storefront right now. You need to really reinvest it in the roof. So it's making sure that buildings are there sustainably into the future, rather than just making sure that, you know, we're using the old adage of lipstick on a pig type of thing. The second service that I could spend just as much time talking about that is equally as important is our business services. We have 2 people on our team that focus on business assistance that partner with all 3 major universities that have business outreach, the SBDCs, the SBA, different economic development entities. But our Main Street business services provide one-on-one business assistance. We do a lot of visual merchandising assistance. We'll do a lot of a market analysis specific to individual business types, or market analysis for a downtown as a whole. Every year we do about 10 market analyses with communities across the state of Iowa, and we do that on a regular basis. There again, providing market data to help inform the decisions that the local Main Street program is doing. And then last but certainly not least is the capacity building stuff. It's board trainings, it's fundraising trainings, it's strategic planning, it's doing a lot of things to help strengthen the capacity of the local Main Street program and the partnerships that exist. So those are kind of the 3 big buckets of the services that are available on a free and ongoing basis. In the first 3 years of a Main Street program, we invest about $115,000 of technical assistance. On an annual basis, it's about $15,000 to $25,000 of technical assistance to each Main Street program on a regular basis. So after each application round, I send a survey to the communities that were designated and communities that were not designated, and I asked them why they applied for Main Street. And these are kind of the trending responses that I got from the last time. That would have been in late 2019 that the survey was from. But it's the idea that these are the reasons why the communities that have applied for Main Street in the past applied for Main Street. Everything from the process to group accountability, to the small business support, to the training expectations, different things along those lines. So it's the idea that when a community comes to Main Street, they're not coming because they're interested, they're coming because they're committed to downtown revitalization from a long-term perspective. So there again, 53 designated Main Street programs, application on an every other year basis. So the next round would be in this early 2024, which sounds like a long ways off. But for a community like Indianola, that is on the kind of the front edge of that investigation process, the timing is actually really perfect. That you as a downtown commission could bring the downtown assessment back out and say, you know what, in between now and the end of 2023, what are some things that we can do? What are some things that we can do to really make an impact in our downtown that may be low-hanging fruit? Because that's the other thing about downtown revitalization, especially after a project like you're going to be wrapping up this year. There are a lot of very small things that you could do that can have a huge impact on the community and the community's experience with downtown. So as you start with the investigation, I always use this image that, generally speaking, every community in the state of Iowa and every community across the country is interested in downtown revitalization. So every community has some sort of interest. If I would ask them, are you interested in downtown revitalization? As you do your investigation, that needle really needs to move into that committed area. So it's how would your community, how would Indianola be demonstrating the commitment in the Main Street program? And that's really what the application process does. That's the investigation process, that it's getting the city support, financial support. It's the commitment of organizations in the community that are saying, you know what, this is a good thing. The Chamber, the Economic Development Corporation, Beautification, Hometown Pride, everyone's coming together to say, yes, this is a good thing. Those are all kind of ticks along the border to say we're moving closer to that committed area. But there's a lot of communities that go through the investigation process that go, you know what, maybe we're right in the middle. You know, maybe we have 4 or 5 of these things, or maybe, you know, at the summer of 2023, we are 100% committed as a community. And maybe by December of 2023, you know, maybe the mayor leaves, maybe, you know, the director of the chamber leaves and a new director comes on. Maybe it's a new leadership that comes in that just changes that. So what it really takes is making sure that you have that broad and consistent communication throughout time. Just a handful of resources for you all, especially as downtown leaders here in Indianola. As I said, the newsletter is something that I would highly encourage and kind of give you all an assignment to sign up for the newsletter. If you go to the Iowa Downtown Resource Center page, it's at the bottom. It says stay informed or something like that. We also have a Downtown Resource Center Facebook page that we use to communicate with, but we also use to share best practices and case studies. And some of the examples that I showed here have been highlighted on the Main Street page. Our website has a myriad of different resources and community, including an online community resource examples folder. So as you start to think about things that you're doing in downtown, maybe it's downtown guidelines, or maybe it's ordinances, or maybe it's board commitment letters for as you start to create a Main Street board. There are a lot of examples that are available on our website right now. And then in the summer, we're going to be transitioning to a new tool that I'm really excited about called Street Grid. It's an online resource guide, but it's also going to have a startup guide. So there again, for you as a new community that's investigating Main Street, you could use that startup guide to kind of walk through a process to really ramp up your engagement and interest. But it also is an a la carte tool that you could use, even if you decide, you know what, Main Street's not right for us, you could still use all of those resources on a free and ongoing basis. The Main Street Iowa page is separate from the Downtown Resource Center page and has a lot of great resources, including funding sources and different things along those lines. We also have a YouTube channel that has a number of training resources on it, but it also has a new training resource that we created last year called Main Street Basics. So it's a 6-part video series that goes through a very intensive training for Main Street. So that would be an opportunity, like with the Chamber of Commerce, if it's something that you want to move forward with the conversation. There's a Main Street approach video that would be a wonderful opportunity to share with other partners to kind of walk through some of this. And then our partners at Main Street America have a ton of great resources. There is some that are available for free. And then there is, I think it's a $275 membership. As a city and as a commission that has a downtown commission, I would encourage you to join Main Street America at that I think it's interested community level or something. It has some weird name, but it's the lower rate. But if the city would join on behalf of this commission, it would give you access to a lot of really great resources through Main Street America. And there again, just start to demonstrate larger partnership and things along those lines. So that's me. That's my nerdiness in full view. How are y'all feeling? What are the observations that you have? Any aha moments?
I think it's exciting. I think it's something we definitely need to explore. And the timeline of the next application round, I think is what we really need. We need to take the next 2 years and essentially get our shit together. We gotta refocus and organize and get everybody on the same page and create that more positive, inclusive atmosphere and work towards this. But I think if the groups to unify and identify and, the one you brought up, Travel Iowa, the chamber, we figured out this winter that if you look at Indianola on Travel Iowa, it links you to Catch Des Moines.
Oh, no. Yeah. Right.
That was our representation. So
Yeah.
The city has now funded the chamber. We're creating the Elevate Indianola website. So Indianola will have
Great.
a legit website.
Nice.
And I think these are all the good steps. So figuring out how to get more people. I agree.
I would obviously be in it alone for the guidance for downtown housing. Everything that you said about the design is what stopped us in our tracks when applying for a grant. We were running out of time and you need all this information to apply for the grant. Didn't have that. So it's like, yeah. So I would being alone for the guidance to make the proper decisions for historic brick buildings, that education.
I think the timing is right for us too, because we've just
Oh, yeah.
invested all this into our
Yeah.
downtown. Now we need to come together, get organized, get on the same page. There are so many committees out there that people are like, what's going on?
Yeah.
And I think we missed the boat. I mean, our chamber does a nice job, I think, and they have their hands full because it's a one-person show, but we missed the boat when Balloons comes to town. That drives in thousands of people. And as a square committee or not committee, but as merchants down here, I think we missed the boat of getting those people into our stores. We have this disc golf course that's supposed to be amazing out at Pickard or whatever. We miss that crowd that comes to
Yeah.
town. You know, Simpson is huge,
Yeah.
the opera, we've got lots of good things here, being the
Absolutely.
county seat, the
Yeah.
fair. I just think we need to focus on getting those people into our establishments to spend money,
Mhm.
you know?
And-
So I
and-
think this might be, that's where I get excited thinking, okay, we can target some of those people because we don't have somebody
Yeah.
set aside to do all that marketing. for
And
us.
that brings up that really valid point there again between organizations that have a larger mission is,
Right.
you know, if I'm coming to town for the balloon festival and there's just a general list of 200 businesses in Indianola and say, hey, shop in Indianola, I'm going to look at that and go like, okay, well, I'm just going to drive around. I'm going to find something.
Right.
But if in order to have someone that is not bashful to stand up and say, come to downtown, you know, come, you know, this is the event that's happening in downtown without that fear of being like, well, we're leaving other people out. It's the idea that my mission is as a staff person is to focus on downtown. That changes that perspective. It complements the work that the community is doing as a whole. But it's that idea that there again, to relate it to other areas, if you are the mall director of Jordan Creek, you're not worried about offending West Glen. You're making sure that Jordan Creek has people coming and that bus full of 13-year-olds from the baseball tournament, are they're bringing all of their parents to the restaurants and things along those lines. That's that similarity to say, you know what, that's that downtown director that is the advocate. It's that downtown board of directors that are saying, absolutely, rally around, give me the hat, give me the flag, let me stake it in the ground. And that's that difference between saying Indianola is a great place and downtown is one of the places that you have to stop within that great place. So,
And I think the malls of the world are kind of dying out. And COVID was good for us small businesses in that sense.
Yeah.
That people started shopping local, not traveling. And if you're gonna pay $5, $6 a gallon for gas, hopefully people will shop local and eat
Mhm.
local.
Yep.
You know, I think the trend is
Yeah,
in our favor.
It's definitely in our favor.
Yeah.
I think it's a challenge for Indianola getting people to move off Highway 65, 69. So if they go back and forth to all these main events, like at Pickard and the Bloomfield, and then traveling, like, how to get them to come off onto the square, because they're passing fast food,
Right.
they're passing Walmart, it's all right there.
I think we
Move
need to
one
do-
block over.
We need to do something at Pickard to advocate because there have been so many ball teams in town, and they do come in and shop. they'll
Our
eat.
tournaments, they're huge.
Yes,
Yeah.
I just had a big crowd on Saturday that was in for a tournament and they were from Illinois. So we just need to market that and.
and when is the streetscape project slated to be complete?
Well,
Which we're
the
looking to.
street side, hopefully by the end of this year, and then we have alley.
The alley, oh, that's right.
But
Yeah.
That's really.
For the most part, the end of the
It's there,
year,
it's gonna
yeah.
be going on, there's gonna be some disruption, but I think the
Yeah.
general public will not
Yeah.
really see much of that.
So to me, I think there again, from a timing perspective, it's hard to believe that we are coming up on July already here. But if I were in your shoes, I would pull out the downtown assessment visit report. And is everyone aware that that exists?
No.
Perfect.
Well, I will get.
Charlie's gonna make sure that that
discussion
happens.
That we have.
Yeah.
Next time, because you know, it's funny, I can go back to this, because I started here in November of 2018. The bond referendum on the courthouse was passed, September of 2018? And then at that point, the city, the chamber, and WCDC started working together, and WCDC is one-time economic development.
Mhm.
But they started working together to look at the downtown. Okay, well, we're gonna have this big new courthouse on the square. What do we need to do city-wise and get businesses all up? And of that came the downtown square plan, and from the downtown square plan came the reconstruction project that's currently going on right now. So there's been elements of that that have been implemented, but
Yeah.
maybe it's a good idea, like you mentioned, just to go back to kind of square one on
Yeah.
how all that started.
And with the idea that it's not really your charge, at least I assume that it's not really your charge as a small group of people to support the businesses through construction or to be, you're not involved in the streetscape project. So that enables you to say, our purpose right now can be, how can we use the last 6 months of this year to make sure that as the streetscape is done, maybe this commission could come up to say, all right, here are our 3 top priorities.
we've already kind of talked about that in our couple of meetings already, is this is all gonna be done.
Excellent.
This is all gonna be great. This is what it's going to look like, or we want it to look like. What's the next step? And
Yeah.
Yep.
And that's exactly why we started putting this commission together.
Yep.
was Because we knew at the end of this year that was gonna be completed,
Yep.
and then we need somebody to really champion.
yeah. we
What's
can-
next? How do we keep the momentum moving forward?
So-
How do we
So
create
I'm
those-
glad that you've started the conversation. Now pull the report back out, kind of see where you're, I like that you, without the report, you all just said, hey, here's what we want to accomplish. Now, here's what this group said that, because that includes public input and things from that perspective. You could layer on those two pieces. And then as the city commission come out and say, hey, you know what, here are our primary goals, as you're already doing. But then really focus 2023 on identifying what before 2023 to identify what those low hanging fruit pieces are. Some of your goals may be 5-year, 10-year implementation goals, but really think about what some small scale pieces are. And I would hope that one of your goals would be something along the lines of building capacity for downtown revitalization work. Whether that be, creating the regular meeting between partners that, do that asset mapping as was discussed before. The idea that part of your goal could be the leading entity on investigating Main Street, visiting other Main Street communities, bringing back ideas, going to the downtown conference, that you become the liaisons of that effort. But knowing that as a city commission, the city commission wouldn't be the Main Street program. It would need to be housed within a nonprofit, whether that be a new or existing nonprofit. But you could be the group of people that are dedicated towards making that happen. And I would say that puts you 10 steps ahead already with most communities that apply for Main Street. Because a lot of times when communities apply for Main Street, it is, for example, Albia, it's their board of directors, their Chamber of Commerce board of directors that is guiding the application process. So that means the Chamber of Commerce board of directors is not doing what they were doing before, they're doing the Main Street application. In Marengo, it is a group of volunteers that are doing it, that just got together to become the steering committee for the Main Street application process. So it's people that don't have any sort of structure or function or togetherness. So the fact that you all are here, I think it's spectacular. I mean, it bodes well to really be very deliberate about a process moving forward.
So once you're in, are you in, or do you have to reapply after so many years, or how's that work?
There are two mechanisms. Every 5 years, there's a redesignation process. It's not as intensive as the application process. I will be very honest, the application process is a deep dive. The reapplication process is more of a recommitment of why you want to be doing this work. And then every year there is an accreditation process that's a national accreditation process. So communities are required to accredit at least once every 2 years, and that's a national Main Street rule. So those are kind of the two contractual functions. And I would say every time we go through that contract and the redesignation process, there are 1 or 2 communities that decide for a number of reasons, they decide to leave the partnership. Well, thank you so much for the commitment that you're making to be on the Downtown Commission. I have a number of kind of weird ties to Indianola, so I'm just grateful that there are people that are passionate about seeing downtown thrive, especially after the exciting investment that is happening right now. Like you had mentioned, to help protect that investment, but really use that as an opportunity, as a platform to grow Indianola beyond where it was in the past. So. And Charlie knows how to get a hold of me a number of different ways.
Yes.
So if you have any questions, feel free to reach out. So Amanda, we'll turn it back to you.
You're good, I don't care.
No, you're okay. No, you're fine. Not at all. Oh, we're gonna be old. 4-year-old. I know.
Michael,
once we get started, I guess, too, and just kind of talking more. If it's something that we're talking about getting the process started.
Yeah, I think that'd be good.
How far out do we need to start the application process? Would it be, you said end of 2023?
I could, if you want, I could send the application document as it exists now. It's updated a little bit every other year. But we didn't talk about the application process itself, but there is a series, there are a series of application workshops that happen in February-ish. And then communities who will participate in that application workshop are eligible to apply in that application round. So there is that first level of funnel. So I'll send you the PDF of what the application is now, and you could start working on it as much as you want, or using that to help guide your planning processes. There's a lot of inventory needs and things along those lines that become a really great exercise in creating strength of the downtown movement. But you can't formally start until the 2024 application is released after the application workshop.
And so Charlie, we would just make a recommendation to council, correct? Because it's something that you guys would have to pay for.
Yeah, I think, and we'll have to kind of figure that out, obviously,
Yeah.
the funding portion, that some of it has to come from the city, but then just trying to build, I guess, the rest of it and how that funding does come along, because, I think, and talking through it, I mean, we discussed possibly being a go under the chamber, things like that, they're funded out by their investment. I would think that most of the funding for Main Street organization has to come off some of that private investment, right?
Mhm.
So just figuring out what that structure looks like and all of that, so.
Yeah, that's what I would have reservations about. And it would depend on what that looks like.
Yeah.
And ultimately, it's still a council decision, so my one opinion doesn't really hold much, so. But, yeah,
And council is half the decision.
right.
Yeah, I mean, council's the gateway, but there has to be a number of other people that are turning the key as well. And one of the kind of the fun things that's happening now is there are what I would call enhanced partnerships with cities, where, like any nonprofit, the executive director role is a tough role to keep and maintain any nonprofit, but a Main Street program as well. And we're seeing a lot of partnerships with cities being developed where the executive director has it's kind of like a librarian position where the Main Street executive director is a city employee, but is guided by the board of directors. Similar to a librarian is a city position, city benefits, different things along those lines, but it's guided. And the library's decisions are oftentimes guided by the library board. So we have a number of examples of communities of all sizes that have a relationship like that has really helped create a very unique investment from the city, but then creates a lot of sustainability for that position long-term.
That would be interesting to look at, because I think that's part of our chamber struggle of having an executive director that kind of works, seems like, for the city, but doesn't receive those benefits like
Yeah.
what. So I think that's important to keep that full-time employee.
Mhm.
We'll continue the discussion. I think if Michael, you give the presentation, I'll kind of start an email that we'll get together to you guys with just some information. We can start maybe our next meeting going over that report and talking through some of that stuff, and then just trying to maybe build some consensus amongst this group on kind of what the next steps might be. So that sounds good. Really quick, I think the only other thing that we had on the agenda was to talk about the downtown conference that Michael brought up a few times, and I believe that is, what is it, August 2nd and 3rd?
That's correct.
Is the Impella, so it's a 2-day conference. So if there's anybody on the commission that wants to attend, please let me know. We can work and we've got funding available to get you signed up. I believe the fee is $200, if I remember right.
That sounds high, but
We'll look into
I'm-
whatever it is, it doesn't matter.
I'm happy that there's someone that focuses on that.
Yeah, so if that's high, that's perfect. If it's cheaper than that, then we can still afford it. But yes, anybody that wants to come or go to that, let me know. I am attending, I think 2 days there, so.
I think Erica said she wanted to go.
Yeah.
She did. It's like, no, Rob
She
wanted
just
to go.
signed
Eric is it? She left early.
I'll talk to her, but if anybody else would be interested in attending, just shoot me an email. Saying that we just signed up.
That's balloon days. I'll be
Yep.
busy doing
I
that,
know.
but
Yeah.
And that's, it's a bad timing. I know for, we'll get a few things. I'm leaving that Wednesday. I'm gonna have to probably just go half day because of some stuff. So.
Perfect. Motion to adjourn.
Yes.
I'll make a motion.
All in favor?
Aye. Thank you, very educational.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thanks.
you're welcome. It's 150 if you get registered before July 15th.
July 15th.
Yep, but you are